Tonight, 40 days to freedom. Pubs, hairdressers, having friends around and holidays. The plan to ease restrictions, but only for the fully vaccinated. Chasing 70% double doses for the October 18 reopening. Queensland does it again. Another cruel border ban for a desperately sick baby stuck in Sydney. Also tonight, shock evidence as the Paris terror trial gets underway. The getaway car warehouse raids unlock the missing link to some of Sydney's worst crimes. The simple blood test, a breakthrough predicting the risk of Alzheimer's decades early. And the teenager trying to rekindle his team's title hopes.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. The long-awaited roadmap to freedom has finally been released by the Premier, revealing when lockdown will ease with everything from pubs to clubs, retail stores, weddings and gyms back in business. This is a live look at Bankstown Sports Club, which is ready to welcome back guests as soon as it's allowed. Freedom Day will be on the Monday after New South Wales reaches 70% fully vaccinated. On current projections, the state government is hoping that will be on October the 18th. But that could be pushed back if we miss the target.
At the Lord Nelson Hotel, Sydney's oldest pub, New Hope.
Today, the New South Wales Government is outlining our plan, our roadmap.
The Premier promising they can reopen within weeks.
Well, that's good news. It means you can plan. I've had people ring already and say they want to book the outside immediately.
The lockdown to end for the fully vaccinated on the Monday after the state's double-dose vaccination rate reaches 70%.
You have been warned. If you're not vaccinated, come forward and get the vaccine. Otherwise, you won't be able to participate.
New South Wales back in business from mid-October with COVID safety measures in place, masks mandatory indoors in public venues and on public transport. The 4 square metre rule applied across all industries and activities. In hospitality, a 2 square metre rule will apply outdoors. Drinking while standing only allowed outside.
There's never been a greater incentive for people to go and get vaccinated.
For people with proof of full vaccination on their Service New South Wales app, all retail shops will reopen. So too personal service providers, including hairdressers and beauticians, a maximum of 5 clients per premises. Gyms and indoor recreation able to hold classes for up to 20 people. Crowds of 5,000 allowed at major outdoor events, 500 at ticketed indoor events. Cinemas, theatres, galleries, as many people as the 4 square metre rule allows, up to 75% capacity, and you'll be able to travel within New South Wales. Caravan parks, camping grounds open, carpooling allowed.
In many ways it's been the worst of times, but the best of times are on the way.
Up to 50 vaccinated guests can attend weddings with dancing, but they must be seated while eating and drinking. The same number permitted at funerals. Places of worship restricted only by the 4 square metre rule and a ban on singing. Also, an unexpected bonus. Home gatherings can resume with a maximum 5 visitors if all adults are fully immunised. Outdoor gatherings increased to 20 people.
We know in reality people will slip. And that's why we can't afford to have unvaccinated people mixing with vaccinated people.
Residents in hotspot council areas promised the same freedoms if health officials approve. That will depend on case numbers closer to Freedom Day.
It may well be that vaccinated people will be able to undertake everything on the list, but within their own local community.
The criteria should be released for the areas that could be under further restrictions. It's crucial so they can understand what future is in front of them.
So when will Freedom Day be? As 7 News revealed last night, Monday, October 18 is the date the state government is targeting. But any slowing of the vaccination rate will push it back a week to the 25th. Restrictions will be eased further when we reach 80%. That's due on November 1. International travel, community sport, bigger crowds at major events, all on the cards.
Good on you, Gladys. I look forward to similar steps being taken by other premiers around the country.
Restrictions to be eased even sooner in some parts of the state. Regional council areas with no active cases for 14 days lifted out of lockdown this Saturday.
Hopefully it gives a level of hope and light at the end of this tunnel, the long winter.
And Alex Hart joins me now. Alex, what impact will opening up have on case numbers?
Mark, the expectation is that there will be a spike, but how big that will be, well, We just don't know. It's my understanding Crisis Cabinet was not presented with any modelling about the consequences of opening up before making today's decision. And the Chief Health Officer does have some concerns about this. Leaked advice from Dr Kerry Chant reveals she raised the prospect of an Israel or UK scenario playing out here. Both had an explosion in cases and rising deaths when they reopened. I'm told she didn't oppose today's freedom plan, but fears the vaccination push could start to lose momentum if restrictions are eased too quickly. She's urged the government to be cautious and keep some measures in place until we reach 85%. Mark.
OK, Alex, thank you. While the roadmap has given businesses and employees more certainty, some are upset they've missed out. The wedding industry, for one, says a limit of just 50 guests is unfair to couples after many have repeatedly had to postpone their big day.
Danielle Fard has cancelled her wedding twice. A COVID bride, Danielle and fiancé Adam have lost thousands of dollars replanning their wedding day. Hoping to invite 350 people, today's announcement weddings will expand to 50 guests missed the mark.
I come from a Lebanese background, so 50 people is only your aunties. It's not necessarily much help to me.
At a 70% vaccination rate, weddings of 50 can go ahead with dancing. Eating and drinking is allowed while seated.
It's a blessing at the moment because that means I can open up my doors for smaller weddings.
The Hawkesbury Function Centre has a 250 guest capacity. Daniela Cacciatolo is just happy to reopen.
What do you have to quickly do to get ready?
I just make sure everything's ready. I've got my QR code, masks.
But some believe with 500 people allowed in a pub, weddings have been shortchanged.
It's absolutely shocking. I think they just got it wrong.
We will be calling for a full reopening for the industry at 80%.
Funerals also capped at 50. Churches and places of worship will allow a one-person 4 square metre rule. Singing isn't allowed.
We're just going to have to live without singing for a while.
This was Joe D. Marty's service in Haberfield today. A lollipop man, he worked the crossing outside St Joan of Arc School. Photos of students who couldn't be there because of COVID restrictions made up the congregation.
Business owners say they need a date to work towards with no certainty of when we'll hit a 70% vaccination rate and how quickly restrictions will ease when we do.
Do we allow unvaccinated people in the salon? Do we let... I don't want to be discriminative here. I want to be doing everybody's hair.
As business owners dream of a future with no restrictions.
It would just be like being free again. Just like letting a bird out of a cage, pretty much.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
And whether we hit that target date of October the 18th depends on how many of us are willing to get vaccinated and those crucial supplies. Right now, 43.6% of New South Wales adults have had 2 doses. Today, another 1,405 COVID cases were reported, and sadly 5 more people have died, 4 of them unvaccinated. Authorities are now in a scramble to stop further outbreaks, with serious fears for the inner west.
In Camperdown, unit block lockdown. Residents trapped, cars too. Parking tickets growing, and so is the anger. Feeling imprisoned.
Well, because prisoners get 3 square meals a day. They're going through and confiscating things like alcohol and, you know, just regular human rights that everybody has.
This early learning centre in Zetland shut down today. Signs the inner west outbreak starting to spike. Glebe, Waterloo, Marrickville, multiple Housing Commission homes, vulnerable communities.
We're seeing an upswing in cases in the inner west.
But good news for Western Sydney's 12 council areas of concern.
We are in some of those communities starting to see some glimmers of flattening.
Hospital numbers, though, are creeping up, 1,175. And worse,
Today you'll find for the first time we went over 200 in the number of people in our intensive care wards.
And they're preparing for many more. Here, the first look inside Concord Hospital's $340 million makeover, with wards to open first exclusively for the expected COVID tsunami over the next month.
This next hard yards of the 4 weeks is going to be tough.
Now the race to vaccinate, chasing 70% double doses for an October 18 opening. One key expert predicts it won't be a problem, calculating 27 days, October 7.
I would say to everybody, please get vaccinated so I can be right.
There are signs vaccine enthusiasm is waning.
We are seeing that rate slightly decline.
We've crunched the numbers for the last 2 weeks, and that is true. Here's what's happening with the second doses of the vaccine. Other than the usual weekend dips, they're holding steady at around 50,000 a day. In fact, there was a near record on Tuesday. The problem is first doses, which have started to fall from a high of 87,000 last Monday to just 48,000 this Monday. Likely vaccine hesitancy. But either way, the Chief Health Officer is adamant the first dose take-up shows we will get there.
We'll get to 80% by Monday or Tuesday, and you can hold me to that.
At the MassVac Centre today, the rush to get that final shot for Freedom Day.
Second dose.
Second dose.
Second dose.
Second dose.
Second dose.
Some, though, are worried they won't get it in time, with the interval between Pfizer doses now up to 8 weeks wait.
Have you got your second dose booked in?
I do, yep.
Is that before or after the 18th?
It is right on the 18th.
The only way to speed up a second dose? Go to your GP. And news that whatever happens here, WA's Premier says we won't be visiting there until at least February, March or April.
We'll bring down borders with New South Wales and Victoria, the infected states, when it's safe to do so.
Chris Reason, 7 News.
The Delta strain is causing havoc in many suburbs across Sydney, and tonight a lack of vaccines has added to that headache. It's leaving many of those in hotspot suburbs at risk, and in some cases it's resulting in death. And GPs have had enough.
She doesn't want to be identified but wants to tell her story.
Terrible. Basically, I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy.
24-year-old Danielle from Sefton has the Delta strain of COVID and isn't vaccinated.
I do think we would not be in this position if we had Pfizer available.
Do you regret waiting for Pfizer?
I do wish that I took the AstraZeneca earlier. I just to avoid what we're going through.
Her GP says she's not alone.
I've tried my best to get them to come and take AstraZeneca, which is a very, very safe and good vaccine. But unfortunately, Pfizer seems to be the flavour.
More than a dozen patients at this clinic alone have been infected while waiting.
We've got lots of cases or examples of patients catching COVID because they've just waited too long.
This is the epicentre of this nightmare. This is where people are getting sick and where they're dying, and we've got a doctor's surgery in the heart of all of that can't get any of the Pfizer vaccine.
But millions of people have heeded the call to get whatever vaccine they can. 4.8 million doses of AstraZeneca have been administered in New South Wales since the start of the rollout, compared to 3.4 million taken up in Victoria. It's feared Pfizer stocks could further dwindle as the allocation to New South Wales is reduced in coming months to make up for the extra doses we received in August. But federal authorities say supply won't be scaled back until demand is. In other words, until majority of the population is vaccinated. CabCharge wants to help get us there, giving away $200,000 of fares to get people to vaccine appointments.
It's going to save me the time and the worry from taking public transport, because you don't know who's vaccinated or who's been tested.
A free ride on the road to freedom. Amelia Brace, 7 News.
New figures have confirmed which Sydney workers are finding it increasingly hard to get a job, including those in hospitality and retail. But when those industries do fire up again, workers won't be the only ones to benefit, with vaccinated customers enjoying a more normal lifestyle.
At the Bella Vista Hotel, they're dusting off the bar and getting ready to reopen. And after months of lockdown, freedom has never tasted so good.
Very exciting for us. Morbid walking through a venue of the size and a layout like this and seeing it abandoned and empty.
There's no question restrictions have taken their toll on business. New data shows job ads in New South Wales were down almost 11% last month. The hardest hit industries, hospitality and tourism, trades and services and retail. Today's news, the shot in the arm they all need.
This is so important for the economy of New South Wales. We think this is the right group of industries to start with. They're essentially the lifestyle industries.
For tourism operators cities like Sydney Zoo, the plan to reopen has them flying high. For months, keepers and animals have been crawling up the walls. Soon, they and other venues like stadiums and theatres will be allowed one guest per 4 square metres, up to 5,000 people.
I think a lot of families are really struggling being indoors, especially homeschooling. It's been pretty tough. The animals, especially the social ones, are really missing the people that were coming through.
While there's no set date, it's expected freedoms will begin to return within 6 weeks, early enough for retailers to capture the Christmas trade, which for many is the last hope of staying afloat.
Small business has been absolutely decimated by these lockdowns, and what we're pleased to know, at least they've got some hope of surviving.
And more time to work off those Christmas kilos.
We're all starting from ground zero on this one, ready to build ourselves back up slowly.
We are in it together, that's for sure.
I think it's on everybody to get vaccinated as soon as they can. These freedoms will only be available to people that are vaccinated.
Hitting that 70% vaccination rate doesn't just mean getting back more individual freedoms like going to the pub, but it also means across all industries there'll be more jobs and more people back at work.
Upwards of 300-400 staff on our books, so it's really exciting to be able to get all those people back into gainful employment.
Andrew Denny, 7 News.
It's been revealed HSC results will be released around the 20th of January after Year 12 students sit their delayed exams in November. With an official announcement expected tomorrow, the Premier's new roadmap revealed more children could be back in school sooner than predicted. Michael Usher has the details on the teaching timeline.
Well, Mark, as it stands, only kindergarten, Year 1 and HSC students in Sydney will return to school on October 25th. Other years will return on staggered dates in the first weeks of November. But if the state hits the 70% double dose target before October 25th, all years could return to school in Sydney under Level 3 restrictions on the first Monday after the milestone. Now, Level 3 is described as a full return with reduced mingling and on-site activities. All children in areas of regional New South Wales who are now being released from lockdown will return to school from this Monday. HSC exams, they begin on November 9th as planned. The results are expected before Australia Day. The official date, that'll be announced tomorrow, Mark.
Michael, thank you. Case numbers in the Victorian outbreak have exploded. 324 were reported today, the highest daily number in more than a year. The majority were in Melbourne's northern suburbs.
I'm not shocked by that. We're going to see cases go up because this virus is highly contagious.
The government is now shifting vaccine supplies to hotspot areas. The Prime Minister has been forced to defend his health minister after revelations that he refused to meet with senior Pfizer executives last year. Scott Morrison says the vaccination rollout is speeding up while dismissing his critics as heroes of hindsight.
Declaring the vaccine rollout is back on track, no longer 2 months behind.
Well, we've continued to catch up the ground.
Confident the original target that all those who want a jab can get one by October will be met.
We'll now be in a position that we will meet that mark next month.
Painting a brighter future as he's again forced to defend rollout decisions of the past.
There'll be lots of hindsight heroes.
Health Minister Greg Hunt under pressure over documents revealing he declined a meeting with Pfizer's global executive team in July last year, at a time when other countries were signing massive vaccine supply deals with the pharmaceutical giant.
And you guys are too slow.
Look, I take a different view.
A view that Pfizer's priority then was servicing other countries.
The focus was not on Australia. The focus was on where people were dying in their thousands, tens of thousands, in the Northern Hemisphere.
The government's focus on developing AstraZeneca's ability to make and distribute its vaccine here.
And that has kept thousands, if not millions of Australians safe from the virus.
Pointing out that while Japan did sign a supply deal with Pfizer in July last year, it only received its first doses in January, just 2 weeks before Australia, which signed in November. Labor pressed the government consistently last year to move more quickly on a deal with Pfizer and says that it didn't has helped fuel the current problems.
What these emails show is that this is Scott Morrison's lockdown.
Something he wants the Prime Minister to wear. Mark Riley, 7 News. Survivors of the 2015 Paris terror attacks have been left shocked and shaken after the key surviving suspect declared himself an Islamic State soldier. France's biggest ever criminal trial is now underway.
many of the surviving victims hoping for more than justice.
Under heavy security, a purpose-built court in the heart of Paris. 14 accused terrorists in custody and hundreds of survivors hoping for justice. For some, though, this is all too painful.
Some don't dare to come to Paris because it brings a lot of reminiscences.
Among the suspects, Salah Abdesalam, seen here in newly unearthed video caught by chance by a news crew in Belgium, walking among shoppers in 2014, before allegedly taking part in the attacks that killed 130 people in Paris, injured hundreds more. When asked for his profession in court, he said, "I gave up my job to become an Islamic State soldier." With an IS fighter just metres away, the survivors feel directly threatened, this lawyer says. French authorities believe Abdesalam is the only terrorist who survived that night. They say the rest of the accused helped with planning. This survivor simply hoping for a fair trial.
Being judged by mankind and not by their God or whatever excuse they find or whatever justification they find to those attacks.
It's not just the verdicts many will be watching for, but answers too to so many questions, including who really was directing the terror cell and could the French government have done anything to prevent the bloodshed. Today, the former French President Francois Hollande said he'd answer any and all questions. A 9-month trial, a long road ahead. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Time to check the weather now, Angie. An early taste of summer today.
Mark, we haven't felt this warm in Sydney for about 6 months. It took a while to reach those summer-like maximums, though Penrith's 28.7 was one of the warmest tops in the state, while Sydney hit 28.3 degrees at 3:30 this afternoon. We have a high-pressure system sitting over New South Wales and a series of cold fronts tracking along the south. That's driving those very warm west to northwesterly winds. In parts, those winds are very gusty, especially in the southeast. The highest speeds happening within this yellow zone, which includes parts of the southwest slopes, Snowy Mountains and ACT. But while it feels like summer in most places, blizzards are forecast for the Alps over the weekend. More details on those temperature extremes soon, Mark.
OK, and see you then. Thank you. Police have smashed an alleged crime gang selling stolen vehicles to be used as getaway cars. Next, the high-performance machines taken off the streets. Also, a mother's desperate attempts to stop a car thief with her baby in the back. Costly clean-up, a deadly earthquake rocks Mexico. Later, the 2-minute test predicting your risk of Alzheimer's decades early. And Facebook warning why you could now be sued for what others post in your comments. Welcome back. Police have smashed a sophisticated crime syndicate that's allegedly been renting out luxury getaway cars to underworld crooks. The vehicles are stolen, then modified, some linked to Sydney's biggest crimes, including drive-by shootings and murders.
Tactical officers march in.
Police! Search warrant! Open the door!
Their targets unwilling to come out. Simon Khalil and his son Brendan arrested at their Canterbury home, accused of renting stolen luxury cars to criminals.
The high-performance motor vehicles are usually used in violent crime, shootings, murders and such.
Detectives uncovered 9 stolen vehicles earlier this year that were being kept on this property at Pitt Town.
I know what you're talking about, bro.
They'd been modified at this Summerhill workshop.
They effectively were operating like a hire car company, purely for profit.
Police believe some of these cars are connected to gang crimes involving the Hamzy and Alameddine families. Today, the Khalils were freed on bail, relief for their loved ones, upset by the allegations. The magistrate described the allegations as incredible before releasing the pair on bail. The men claim they're innocent, saying they simply helped to transport the cars from the workshop to another property. They'll return to court in November. Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
The Mexican resort town of Acapulco is cleaning up after a powerful earthquake rocked the region late yesterday. At least one man was killed, crushed by a falling post. The magnitude 7 quake shook some from their beds, triggering landslides and gas leaks. Aftershocks were felt as far away as the capital, Mexico City. Incredibly, there was no major damage. Police have arrested a man who stole a car with a baby in the back. It happened at a Florida service station when a woman left the engine running. The thief jumped in and started driving away as the mother came running out and tried to stop him getting away. Police say a good Samaritan followed the car until the suspect stopped and fled. The baby was not harmed. An out-of-control garbage truck has led to the discovery of an illegal drugs operation in Michigan. Security cameras captured the moment the truck ploughed into a building thought to be unoccupied. But when police investigated, they found it was anything but, with hundreds of cannabis plants growing inside. Police are still investigating who's behind the setup. The parents of a desperately ill baby are pleading to be allowed to take him home to Queensland. Next, pressure on Anastasia Palaszczuk to help baby Rocker. Also, Nettie Smith's lonely end, the notorious Sydney murderer's life and crimes. Could an avocado a day keep the extra kilos away? New claims.
Ahead in sport, Des's storm warning that would make even Craig Bellamy blush.
Welcome back. A baby with a rare medical condition has become the latest child caught up in a bitter feud with Queensland border authorities. Little Rocker and his family have been denied the chance to quarantine at home despite being offered a mercy flight.
4-month-old Rocker, the latest little victim of Queensland's harsh border lockdown.
We're feeling a bit frustrated, obviously, but, you know, the sooner we can get home, the better.
Rocker suffers from spinal muscular atrophy. The family drove to Sydney Children's Hospital last month so he could receive specialised treatment flown in from America.
We had to come to Sydney because it's the only hospital in Australia that offers this treatment.
Now they're stuck. Queensland Health advised the family they could return home but would be split up. Mum and Bub isolated in hospital, Dad in hotel quarantine at their own expense.
It's not easy in this situation, especially when, you know, there could be ways around it.
Queensland Health has so far refused an offer from charity Angel Flight to fly the family to their rural property to quarantine together at home. The Queensland Premier today conceding.
Queensland Health knows they need to do better and they will do better.
Queensland authorities are now in contact with the family to discuss options to get them home and Rocker the medical care he needs. But cases of families torn apart by border bureaucracy continue to pop up. Fast-moving rule changes left 10-year-old Nate trapped in Orange with his grandfather, separated from his mother in Townsville.
I just was like, Nate, it's okay, Poppy can give you my cuddles for you, but it's not the same thing.
They've asked if he can quarantine at home, but they've been advised at this stage hotel quarantine is the only option, a cost they can't afford.
It just feels like it's never going to be the end to it.
Miley Hogan, 7 News.
The mission to rescue Australians and other allies from Afghanistan has officially ended. More than 3,500 people have now been evacuated to Australia, the last plane arriving in Darwin last night.
Of those 3,500, some 2,500 are women and children in one of the most desperate and dangerous parts in the world.
The operation involved just over 30 flights from Kabul. Veteran police officers were united today in welcoming the death of notorious Sydney criminal Nettie Smith. They say while the 76-year-old died serving life for 2 murders, there were probably several more he got away with.
Murder, rape, robbery and drugs. For decades, his name was synonymous with Sydney's underworld.
I think he was allowed to run too far, too wide. But his day, I reckon, he finally came.
Arthur Nettie Smith, 76, died in hospital at Long Bay Jail at 5:20 p.m. yesterday. Natural causes, unlike the violent ends meted out to his victims.
Exceedingly violent man and a very, very active criminal.
Jailed in November 1987, serving life sentences for 2 murders.
Very happy that one of the most evil criminals this city's ever known has gone.
He turned on Roger Rogerson, giving evidence against crooked officers who green-lighted his sinister reign.
A heroin dealer in Sydney of the highest order.
A task force was set up to investigate the unsolved homicides of 14 people. So for their families, the death now of the 76-year-old takes with it all hope of finding any justice. Not that anyone was really expecting Arthur Nettie Smith to confess. Acquitted by a jury over the murder of Sally Ann Huckstep.
Huckstep met her own violent death.
I got no doubt that he did actually murder Sally Ann Huckstep in 1986.
If you're looking for a Sally Ann Huckstep suspect, Nettie would be absolutely top of my list.
Police will again investigate Nettie Smith, but this time only for the coroner.
And I suspect there won't be a rush on Kleenex tissues at the supermarket.
Evan Batten, 7 News.
Detectives from the anti-gang squad are warning bikie associates of the Comancheros they're being watched and illegal business activity will be shut down. They've raided 4 properties, including sites at Borkham Hills and Flemington, seizing stacks of $50 notes, documents and jewellery, including a diamond-encrusted gold ring. Officers say anyone helping criminal syndicates, such as family members, will be targeted. New research suggests eating an avocado a day could help women lose unwanted belly fat. 105 adults took part in a randomised controlled trial that provided 1 meal a day for 12 weeks. The women who ate avocado as part of their daily meal saw a reduction in dangerous visceral abdominal fat. The study was carried out by the University of Illinois, but funded by the avocado industry. A landmark court ruling affecting everyone with a Facebook account. Next, how other people's comments could cost you a fortune. A pandemic twist on a classic beer ad. The simple test to predict Alzheimer's 20 years in advance.
Soon in sport, every kid's dream. The Flying Dutchman pulls off an Italian job on the streets of Palermo.
And if you enjoyed today, the next 3 days should also be very well received. Details soon.
Welcome back. Time now for a check on the markets with Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Mark. Aussie shares tipped into the red when the markets opened and spent the day just sinking further. The ASX 200 closing 143 points lower at 7,370. Losses were widespread, with only 12 of our top 200 companies finishing higher, while miners, banks and retailers all weighed heavily. The Aussie dollar tumbled again overnight. It is now buying around 73.6 US cents, and iron ore took another leg lower. Also sliding, Bitcoin. That's after a strong recovery since a recent July low. Its fall has coincided with El Salvador becoming the first country to accept the cryptocurrency as legal tender this very week. Mark.
Gemma, thank you. Individuals could now be sued for defamatory comments posted by others on their social media pages. A new High Court ruling means you're legally responsible for what your friends and followers say.
Social media is used daily by more than 20 million Australians, and until now, free speech has always flowed.
It's a long time coming. I think that this is something that people have been waiting for a while.
Anyone who runs a Facebook, Twitter or Instagram account is now liable for defamatory comments on their post.
Any member of the public who responds to your posts, whether you know about them, whether you approve of what they say or not, whether you intended them to respond to your post, none of that matters.
Unless you're someone who particularly enjoys posting comments that are outrageous, defamatory, racist, sexist, etc., most of us don't have anything to worry about.
The High Court ruling stems from a landmark case holding media companies to account for third-party comments on Facebook.
The High Court has held that the mainstream media organisations are responsible for the comments posted in response to stories on their Facebook profiles, but the logic of the ruling goes further.
Facebook and other platforms all have some ability to limit comments, but they all have different rules and functions, prompting a warning for all social media users to be on high alert.
Is at the first sign of trouble, unless you've got the appetite for being sued, remove the comment.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
It's a question that can change a life. Today was Are You OK Day, encouraging meaningful conversation in a year like no other by following up with Are You Really OK? 8 Australians die from suicide each day. Listening, offering support and connecting are among important ways we can all help someone facing a mental health challenge. A classic beer commercial has been revamped to encourage people to get the jab. It's calling on Aussies to roll up their sleeves and get vaccinated to help everyone get back to working up a hard-earned thirst.
Or chasing a cow. So if you'd like to get back to leading a band or lending a hand, roll up your sleeves and get the jab.
Matter of fact, I've got mine now.
The commercial will only go to air in lockdown parts of Australia. It's a heartbreaking disease that steals so much from victims. Now, a simple new test could predict who's likely to develop Alzheimer's disease decades early. That intervention could be a game changer. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now Matt is back with sport, and Matt, the coach nicknamed the Mad Scientist, is at it again.
Yeah, but what's he cooking up this time, Fergo? That's the question. Des Hasler makes a big statement about the Storm. Here at Next. Can the Roosters' first-year halfback reignite his team's title chances? And a qualifier makes history at the US Open. The master of mind games, Manly coach Des Hasler, is at it again, claiming the Storm may be impossible to beat. Despite finishing top 4, Hasler has doubled down his team's chances in tomorrow night's qualifying final against the minor premiers.
Maybe Melbourne are impossible to beat. So we'll have to wait and see. They're a good side.
Des might be just playing a couple of games there and trying to get our boys a little bit overconfident, which they won't be, I can promise you that.
In the regular season, Melbourne only lost 3 games. The Roosters are convinced their teenage halfback Sam Walker will thrive in the finals furnace. At just 19, Walker has stamped himself as one of the NRL's brightest young talents in a stellar rookie season with the Tricolours.
It's not easy playing a brutal contact sport when you're 78 kilos wringing wet.
First year playing in the NRL at sort of my weights, it's had its challenges, but I think the club's been awesome with me.
By that, Sam Walker means the Roosters have allowed him to be himself.
Sammy boy, played against him.
You don't want to put reins on some of these players, especially players like Sammy and Teddy. Do what you want, do whatever you want. Robbo really backs you and the boys really back you as well.
That backing is allowing Walker to dream big.
I'm really focused on this next month of footy and you know, I want to win a grand final.
To see this kid come out and play a certain style and be true to himself has been really, really nice.
And that's probably why you see, you know, blokes like Sammy and Teddy and all these freaks excel, just because they're allowed to.
Dad Ben and uncles Shane and Chris are all former NRL stars.
They'll call and message me nearly every day and sort of check in and ask about how training is and how the preparation has been, and they love it. And I think they love it more than I do at the moment.
Victor Radley's return from suspension has the potential to elevate Walker's game even further. The pair will rekindle what's become a devastating combination just in time for the Titans in Townsville.
You don't get a boy to do a man's job.
On the Sunshine Coast, Michelle Bishop, 7 News.
Flushing Meadows has become a field of dreams for a British teenager who's made history at the US Open. 18-year-old Emma Raducanu, the first qualifier in the Open era to reach the Grand Slam's semi-finals.
And Emma Raducanu from Great Britain creates history.
I'm just here taking care of what I can control, and it's my own journey at the end of the day.
Novak Djokovic remains on track for an historic calendar year Grand Slam, defeating Matteo Berrettini. Against Alexander Zverev, Lloyd Harris literally went to water and was forced to clean up his outburst. Zverev won in straight sets. Cricket Australia is threatening to cancel the opening test of the summer against Afghanistan over the Taliban's opposition to the women's game. The first ever test between the two nations is scheduled to begin in Hobart on November 27. But Cricket Australia says if the Taliban won't allow women to play cricket in their country, then they'll have no choice but to cancel the match. Olympic silver medalist Nicola McDermott capped off her breakout season with another brilliant display in the Diamond League final. The routine we saw in Tokyo of jumping, then journaling, worked to great effect once again in Zurich.
She marks every jump she does in her career. There we go in a little book. She writes it down. She gives herself marks out of 10.
The 24-year-old from Tascott finished a close third behind Olympic conqueror Maria Ladikskani. Having won his home Grand Prix last weekend, Flying Dutchman Max Verstappen has revved his Red Bull around the Italian city of Palermo.
Max. Sorry guys, couldn't resist. Copy. Now head straight down this main road. We've got 3 minutes.
With Verstappen only 3 points clear of Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship, the slick video is to promote this weekend's Italian Grand Prix at Monza. And what great pictures. Imagine that, Fergo. You take a car and empty city streets and away you go.
Don't know where you put the groceries, though, when you go.
That's right, no boot.
Thanks, Sherva. Sydney researchers have made a discovery that could diagnose Alzheimer's disease up to 20 years before the onset of symptoms. Their world-first study is expected to lead to a simple blood test and preventative treatment for those at risk.
At 74, Marek is keenly aware of the risk of Alzheimer's.
You know the face of an actor, but you can't necessarily remember the name.
He has no symptoms, and at the moment, confirming Alzheimer's requires expensive tests.
The earlier they can detect any signs of the disease or progression of the disease, the better.
Now, scientists from Macquarie University say they've found a way to do just that, detecting what's happening in the brain in the blood.
It's a major step, and so I think it's a game changer, something like a cholesterol test for heart disease, a blood test for Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's is linked to a toxic buildup of proteins in the brain, one type forming plaque around brain cells, another that clogs up and kills the cells, leading to problems with memory, language, recognition, doing everyday tasks. Researchers have found problem proteins seep into the blood, which the latest technology can now pick up, catching the earliest signs of Alzheimer's up to 20 years before symptoms show.
The brain is still relatively spared. So for an intervention, for a drug trial intervention or treatment, this is the time to act.
As well as the effort to make it easier to find it earlier, a new trial is getting underway focusing on Alzheimer's prevention, looking at the impact of diet, exercise, heart health, brain training in trying to stop the disease before it starts. Paul Kadak, 7 News.
Now Angie's back with a forecast. Ange, the warm weather to roll on.
Mark, another 3 days of above average temperatures, but a cold grey change will follow. Details next.
Hello, tonight on the latest from 7 News, your full breakdown of Sydney's October reopening, live to New York ahead of the 20th anniversary of 9/11, plus the Australian comedian who lost his mother on one of those planes and came face to face with her killers in Guantanamo Bay. Hope you can join me for the latest first edition, 8 p.m. on 7plus, and the latest from 7 News, 10:55 on 7.
Getting to the head of the queue for Moderna, just days away from hitting Sydney, where you can get it on 7 News, 6 o'clock.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: restrictions are set to ease in 40 days if we reach the 70% vaccination target, with pubs, hairdressers and home visits allowed for the double dose. Hospitality, tourism and retail businesses have welcomed the pathway out of the crisis, already preparing to welcome back customers. Queensland is under fire for its cruel border policy, with a chronically ill baby refused permission to quarantine at home. And a breakthrough test could predict the chance of developing Alzheimer's disease decades early. Now here's Angie with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. Today was just the start of a summery warm spell that will last right through the weekend. The top in the CBD was 28.3 degrees. That happened later in the day, around 3:30. 8 degrees above the September average. Around the suburbs, high 20s was the trend. Penrith's 29 degrees was equal warmest in the state today, along with Port Macquarie. Those westerlies are also bone dry. We have a high pressure system lying over New South Wales and a series of cold fronts tracking along to the south. The first of those fronts is driving those very warm west-northwesterly winds across our state at the moment, strongest within this yellow zone. The main change tomorrow is winds will tend more southeasterly from about the middle part of the day. So while tomorrow remains warm, won't be as hot as today. And those cold fronts will have a big impact on southern New South Wales in coming days, with snow forecast across the Alps. Around the nation, heating up in Brisbane, 29 degrees tomorrow. Fine and mild for both Canberra and Melbourne. Will be a bit overcast for Hobart. Adelaide, blue skies and 27. Perth expecting a light shower or two. Back home, even warmer in our far west tomorrow, with some centres to crack the 30s. The rest of the state should again see tops in the mid to high 20s, and those northwesterly winds will drive the heat. They're going to be pretty blustery, particularly in the snowy mountains at Thredbo. Windy too for Katoomba. The rest of Sydney enjoys quite a settled day with temperatures again hitting the high 20s across the west, but a sea breeze from midday onwards will moderate coastal temperatures. We'll generally see lows in the mid-teens and tops in the low 20s on the beach, top of 24 degrees at Mascot. On the water, west to northwesterly winds will run at 15 to 20 knots at first, then shift to the southeast from about the middle of the day. Back in Sydney, it's a clear, mild night ahead, 13 degrees. The top slightly cooler than today, 24, which is still well above average. The weekend will bring tops very close to 30. Sunday in particular, 29 degrees all round, but a cool change does arrive on Monday. That'll drop temperatures back to the high teens with some light showers developing, generally no more than just a couple of millimetres each day, though, and they'll see us through until about Thursday. But first, what a weekend on the way, Mark.
An absolute beauty. Angie,
Sure
thank you. That is 7 News for this Thursday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.